for the training exercise, we have real world tasking.
All of our heads start looking outside because now we know that it's around us.
Cast Eagle, senior ordnance on board.
I laughed and actually said,
I have a Cat 9 with a sledgehammer. You can get it off the airplane. Other than that, it ain't leaving.
and as we're looking at the whitewater is when we see the white Tic Tac. It had incredible capabilities as far as aviation goes. There's no wings, no rotors, no lifting surfaces, no control surfaces. It doesn't have inertia, it doesn't slow down. It just stops instantly and goes the other direction. It was watching us as we were watching it. They actively tried to jam the radar. Active jamming of a radar is a hostile action. This thing disappeared in a second. It was just gone. It just disappeared. You know, what was it? To this day, we don't know.
So, Dave, let's jump right in.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps at 17 years old, for good reason. I did that. I was fortunate enough. They selected me. They sent me to college, to the Naval Academy, and I was fortunate enough to get to fly. And so everyone that flies tactical airplanes in the Navy, which when I say tactical, I mean things that go off of aircraft carriers and come back on aircraft carriers, has a security clearance. And then you go through extensive training. And when I say training, it never stops. So for the entire 18 years I flew, you're in some type of training and you're always being evaluated. We get taught what other airplanes look like. We fly against other airplanes. I've flown against everything in the U.S. inventory except for the Raptor. I did 5 cruises to the Persian Gulf. So I spent a lot of time over there, a lot of time over Iraq, and a lot of time over Africa. So there's a lot that goes into this and all the stuff that we have to learn and train to as far as being professional observers, because if we're not in a shooting war, we're actually out there, you know, things will try and come out towards the boat, and then we have to intercept them and help them go the other direction. So, you know, we are professional observers. And you know, at this point, when the incident happened, I had been flying for about 16 years, about 3,600 hours. I went to Top Gun, so I am one of those guys. So this is a clear, no clouds, perfect Southern California day. And as I look off the right side, the guy in the back seat of the other jet says, "Hey, Skipper, do you?" And I kind of finish the sentence, "Dude, do you see that?" And we're watching this little white object, and it's going like this. We get to about the 12 o'clock, it goes, boop. I start pulling across a circle. It's coming up, gets in front of my nose. You see it start to accelerate, and it goes poof, and it's gone. I looked at it for over 5 minutes, and I chased it. I got within a half mile of it. It had no wings, it had no rotors, it had no known propulsion system, there's no plume coming out, there's no heat signature, no nothing. They had been coming down from above 80,000, come down, hang out at 20,000 for about 3 hours, and they go straight back up. We just happened to be out there when one was there. And
a lot of claims have been made since your story came out, since the New York Times broke it, additional press coverage, and different witnesses have come forward who say that they were on the ship, they saw it with their eyes, they saw it on radar, they were there, they're part of it, and I want to, without naming names, address some of the claims that you have seen and heard because you were there.
So there are 4 of us, 4, that physically saw this thing. 4. 2 of us have talked in the New York Times article. One of them is going to be in a show that comes out on the 31st called Unidentified. That person remains, 2 of them, they're still on active duty and they don't want to come forward. My backseater does not come forward at all, okay? The guy that talked in the New York Times with me doesn't talk anymore. And like I said, this is probably my first and last public appearance. So there were 4 of us that saw it. The 2 people that were in the airplane that took the video did not physically see it with their eyes, but they got the video, okay? So if anyone that was on the ship is an eyewitness, then there's 5,500 people on the USS Nimitz that are eyewitnesses to this, because I will guarantee you 30 minutes after it happened and we got back on board that ship, the entire ship knew that it happened, okay? The movies changed to Men in Black, Signs, Independence Day. We have comics. I have an airplane comic that it's usually based on The Far Side, and it's our ship schedule. For 2 days in a row it was that, and for 2 days they played alien movies. Mars Attacks is one of our favorites, by the way. So I always carry Slim with me, just in case. I shouldn't make jokes, but that's how I am. And then you had the cruiser. There's about 400 people on the cruiser. There were people in the radar room. There was the controller that was actually talking. So you ask, what's that guy really seeing? He's got a round scope in front of him, right? And unlike TV where the strobe goes around, you see the sweep goes around. Aegis cruisers don't have that. They're phased array, right? So they're just, and they don't scan normal. They kind of do this, right? It's very, very fast. So they scan high volumes of the airspace really, really fast. It's an amazing system. So you get little numbers next to blips. They can put their cursors over them and it'll give data. So it's a 3D radar, so it'll give range, altitude, and bearing. So that's 3D. And you can go, oh, that thing's out at 75 miles at 220 at 30,000 feet, okay? So, and then they also have the ability to see like azimuth elevation of things coming down, but you gotta be looking at that. So the actual controller is seeing stuff when he's talking to us, it's at 20,000, and as the radar updates or loses track, he doesn't know. So when we go merge plot, and he loses it, because he can't see it anymore, because our blip is on top of that blip, that's kind of it. So they tracked up to, I wanna caveat this, 10, not 100, 10 is the max they told us they saw. Now, if it's different than that, I was never told. The other rumors that come out is, you guys signed non-disclosures. Never happened. It was classified. Never happened. Men in suits showed up. We're gonna get that one later. Okay? So, when this thing broke, back to Jeremy's original question that I messed up, is how was it when this thing hit? So I can tell you right now, I completely underestimated the power of a New York Times article. I will admit that. The lady that wrote it, Helene Cooper, called me on Thursday after it hit the airways on Saturday at 2 o'clock and said, how you doing? I said, wow. My phone is nonstop ringing. And people can find where you live. It helped them that the guy put that I live in Windham, New Hampshire below the caption on the picture of the New York Times, which didn't make me happy, but that's a different story. So, what all comes out of this as far as the rumors of the New York Times article is very well, I got to read it before they put it in the paper. The Washington Post is really good. And I have talked to a total of, now that I just talked to George, I've talked to, get this, 20 people total. 20, that's it. So it was over 300 publications. It's been on hundreds of news things. I have talked to 20. So for your reference out there, if you want to research this, New York Times, Washington Post, London Sun-Times, Tucker Carlson, Aaron Burnett, Waters World, another CNN one. Jeremy I've talked to a lot. He's got some stuff on his website. Because we kind of go through this, excuse my language and some of that, because I'm driving in my truck home from work and he'll start asking me questions and it kind of pisses me off when people start making stuff up. So that's really it's really the truth. And, we're going to get to questions here in a minute and you can ask them all you want. But the story has been the same for 15 years. When it hit the airways, first guy to call me is about 2:15 on Saturday. It goes on the air at 2 o'clock. So when it hits the internet, he's like, I answer the phone, he goes, you're an idiot. I said, what? He goes, I'm trying to eat lunch and you're on my iPad. What did you do? I said, I got asked to do this by Lou Elizondo, who ran ATIP program at the Pentagon. And he goes, oh, all right. And then it started. And it's been it kind of does this. It dies off, and then the Navy releases that they're changing the reporting procedures, and it goes up, and then this TV thing, it's.
I guess you're being diplomatic, but some of the stories and claims that have been made by people who may have been on those ships are just bullshit.
Okay, so we'll hit it. So these two were at a festival, and he sends me a picture of the manual, and it's got a thing by, who has seen Nimitz Encounters? Stick your hands up. It's like a cartoon depiction, shows the airplanes flying around. It should not be on the internet anymore because I had him take it down. That guy was there. There were some other guys there that I guess they now have PTSD from this. Okay, so I don't have PTSD. I saw it. I got looked at by the lady who wrote the New York Times and said, when I said, I'm going to go check it out, she's like, you what? She goes, I left. I said, no, I wanted to see how close I could get. She said, what if you just saw like an alien inside? I said, I don't know, I would have waved. What are you going to do? You, me, let's get it on. Sorry, fighter pilot ego. So I think he would have won just because I saw that thing fly. But it's, the story is, from our story, and the four of us that physically saw it have the exact same story and has not changed in the last 15 years, almost 15 years. I don't want someone to go, whoa, it actually happened in November. Almost 15 years. So
I tend to deal with, very reluctant UFO messiahs with my life for some reason. I remember the very uncomfortable incident the first time I was able to talk to Commander Fravor. So I actually had known about the event series prior to Paco releasing the article. I was tipped off by some sources, but I held back because it wasn't public, and it wasn't something I felt comfortable invading people's privacy. However, when Paco published his article, I got the thumbs up. Hey, man, you can go now. So first thing, I try to contact Commander Fravor. I don't speak pilot. I'm charming.
Dave.
Sorry, Dave. So they know Dave. So I'm not, I'm charming, but I don't speak pilot. So I was kind of getting coached by Paco. Okay, you got to be brief. You got to talk in this way. I'm grateful you did talk with me, but I got to tell you, Dave was not he did not want to talk about it. He expressly told me, do not publish something. I said, Dave, somebody is going to get wind of this in the UFO community, and you will be fucked, because they will twist it. They will twist it. But we ended up talking for years, and I was able to get a deeper understanding, because just the way he describes things in detail. There's a question I'd like to get to just from the audience, just to get a few of these in, Dave. Can you speak on any additional, so my point is he was a reluctant witness, Can you speak to any additional information or realizations that might have come from the unseen radar footage? So can you tell us anything more that you haven't told? Yeah.
So the biggest thing is, we don't know I know where the tapes. So I took the original tapes and I copied them, and they go in the safe. And then we came back, we went on cruise, that stuff goes back and forth. Somewhere between now and this thing breaking, those tapes just vanished. Most likely someone opened up, found 2 8mm tapes and said, hey, we can reuse these things, slapped stickers on them and slammed them in an airplane and taped over whatever we had. The radar tapes from the USS Princeton, those were supposed to be pulled and archived. There's rumors that, they pulled into port and some guys in suits came and took it off. I will say this, I'm doubtful. I'm skeptical. I could probably track down the CO, who I know, and ask him, because if anyone's going to come on board the boat and take something off that ship, captain has to approve it, okay? So watch what you read on the internet. I gave you some very reliable sources. There are some people that say there are witnesses of this that I will not be associated with. I'll just say that.
Somehow that video appeared online, 2007, 2008, the clip. It was on, someone stole it.
Yes.
Someone stole it from the U.S. Navy.
Off a classified server.
So when we come back, the tapes go in, and we have this giant rack of things, and they tape it all into a giant hard drive in Civic. And that's the stuff that gets dispersed out and goes to a network that we have. It's encrypted and classified for good reason, that we don't want everyone reading everything that we do. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's just how we do business. So when it first got sent to me, the guy that sent it to me was a guy in my back seat. I get this email with a link that says, hey, Skipper, look familiar? So I get it, and then it showed up on YouTube, and it was on YouTube for years. And I would tell the story, and people go, really? I go, yeah, there's a video. And I had the link, and I would forward the link out. And then the link disappeared when the unofficial official report was done, which some of you have probably read the redacted version of. So.
Well, about that, I released it last year. It was redacted. It was a 12 or 13-page report, an analysis that was done years later that looked at multiple sensor systems. That was a legit, unofficial official report, but legit, right?
Very. Oh, yeah. I know the guy that did it. It is a very credible report.
Are there any other sensors that picked up information that could?
No, because someone in the audience asked me, did it pick, there was no ESM, they weren't getting ESM cuts off of it, which is, if something's out there emitting, we have passive things that will pick it up so you can see what's out there. We have it on the airplane too. It's called radar warning receiver, so you can tell if threat systems are looking at you. It tells you, it identifies them in layman's terms. But no, we got no passive cuts. The only thing we got was the radar hit from the airplane. Obviously, the E2s, looks like a little mini AWACS plane that flies off the carrier. They could see it. The carrier could see it. The cruiser could see it. It's just airplanes, we're limited. And depending on the frequency range that the radar operates in can make it easier or harder to see an object like that. So I'm going to assume that where we operate was a little bit harder to see, then they can change. They have different spectrum that they can operate in, which allows them to see stuff that we can't.
So the argument's been made that because that video clip was on some social media site years ago, it's not official. It was manufactured. It wasn't released by the Pentagon years later. Your thoughts on that?
Oh no, the video that's out there, that's 1 minute 30 seconds that the Pentagon authorized release, and now it's everywhere, that is real. That is not a joke. That is not doctored with. I literally watched that video like probably within 15 minutes of that airplane landing. I had it, they were mine, because when you're the boss, you get to do that. So I copied them because those are things that I have to buy because I have a limited budget because it's your tax dollars. And I was pretty frugal with them. So I took 2 new tapes, I copied them, so we had it. So then, because the backseaters have tapes assigned to them, and they use them over and over and over, and then if there's something pertinent, we copy it, and then they keep going. So it was copied, and then it was obviously digitized, because it's an analog, it's not digital tape. The new stuff, I think, is digital. But at the time, we had high 8, just normal, same thing, I'll say camcorders, but no one has those anymore, but camcorders were out there, so yeah.
So there are famously 3 officially released Pentagon verified videos. Your video, the Tic Tac video, the one from your command, the gimbal video where we see the craft that looks just like Lazar described in that movement, and then the Go Fast video. Now, the talk about those, I want to hear the pilots that filmed the gimbal, the pilots that filmed the Go Fast, it's been publicly said already, so the cubes with circular auras, that's public. So those things that we've talked about or heard about online, tell me about the pilots, tell me about people like to argue the gimbal is an airplane that is just turning or banking and the heat signature is of something prosaic. Can you talk about those other vehicles or crafts and from other pilots and what you see in those videos?
Yeah, let's start with the gimbal video. That's the one where the guys are talking and it starts to rotate. It looks like a kind of a saucer with a thing sticking out top and bottom, does this. Okay, so I talked to one of the crews that was out there doing that was out there when the video was shot. If you understand what you're looking at, it's because people are like, it could be an airplane. No, it couldn't be. If you actually, and there's debunkers that say, oh, it's this, it's not. Usually when an airplane rolls this point, there's this thing that keeps us flying, their wings, and wings create lift. When you go like this, there is no lift. If you don't pull, it does this, right? So really, in theory, like a 90-degree angle of bank, who's seen the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds when they do, they're really not totally at 90. They use a little rudder and they can do some things to keep the airplane as it flies by, their knife edge pass. But truly at 0 degrees or 90 degrees angle of bank, there is 0 lift being created and the airplane will start to descend. The airplane, it just sits there. So if it does, it has to put G on and then you're gonna see an aspect change like this. So if it's this way, you're gonna see this or you're gonna see this. In that video, you don't see any change. It just sits there. And it rolls around like this. It doesn't move. You get no aspect change at all.
It's not an airplane that we know.
No, actually, they almost hit one. There's a couple things I see. This is all off Virginia, by the way. It's the vacapes. So there's whiskey areas out there, too. That's where NAS Oceana goes out and trains. So there's a couple things. They've tracked them just sitting there. They've tracked them at high rates of speed. They've been tracked lots. The radars they're using now are even better than the ones that I had in the Super Hornet. It's pretty amazing. So more advanced technology, cooler stuff, more capable. They're seeing it. At first they thought when they first saw it, they thought, oh, these are just ghost hits. And I'm like, no, that radar really doesn't provide ghost hits, which are false targets. It's pretty good. And then someone actually threw their targeting pod out there and there was something there because you can't hide from the targeting pod if you've got any type of heat signature. And that's what really started this. But they've been seen by many people as far as on the radar. And there's been a couple that have seen visual because one guy almost hit one. It was just sitting there.
This is recent. This is real recent.
This is within the last 5 years.
Did they describe these things as conventional aircraft, or how did they describe these things they almost hit, Dave?
They describe it as, well, the one that almost got hit was like a clear beach ball sphere with a cube inside, so the little apexes of each corner hit the cube. So I don't know if it's like a, you know, is it a beach ball or is it like a force field? I don't know. There's something around it. They never, this is kind of what's prompting, I think they're getting heat from other avenues of the government because of what happened with our incident that, you know, hindsight being 20/20, which is how I live my life. Probably should have done something about it. You know, maybe put a little effort into this. If not to go figure out what can come in and penetrate a battle group like that, but God, just what if we can harness that technology? What if you can reverse engineer that technology? Very much what Bob was talking about, to go, can we do this? Because a technology that would do that would change everything we do. I work with a guy, he's a friend of mine that was like employee number 11 at SpaceX. He's not there anymore. And I go, hey, you know, and they're happy. I go, you guys are all happy you can land that little rocket pack on the pad and reuse it? And they go, yeah. I go, if you had one of these things, that's all obsolete. All of it. So the other question is, can a human body withstand those forces? That remains to be, you know, something that accelerates. You know, there's people that say no. But then you go, well, what if you could? Or you just start the acceleration a little slower, you know, and the deceleration. So.
Your conversation last night with Lazar was a little bit about the idea of the gravity insulation, that something could move with that kind of inertia. Even the physical matter of the craft itself probably couldn't withstand a ping pong ball like hitting against the wall and coming back that fast, right? So there's something going on with these propulsion systems that's outside of our scope.
Oh, yeah, but you know, when you had to see the look on our face after we saw it. So you watch something like that and you go, whoa, and then you watch it, you come up from, it's hard enough to just be hanging out down low and then just start climbing up at will. You know, it takes a while to get the, you know, normally you know, if we're going that slow, like if we could hover, we can't. Then if you ever anyone seen a Harrier demo, the Marines, where it kind of sits there when they start to take off, it kind of takes it a minute and it kind of does this and then it starts to accelerate up. That's a lot of energy. Those airplanes are light loaded. They don't have a full combat load. So there's a lot going on. So when you look at something that can just, I'm going to come up and check you out, you go, I'm impressed. Matter of fact, I came back and my XO looks at me and he goes, we're standing there, and he says, that's my number 2 guy. I was the number 1 guy. So if you watch Dr. Evil, I was number 1. He was number 2, then he became number 1. So he looks at me and he says, hey, what do you think that was? And I go, I don't know, but I want to fly it. It was pretty cool.
let me ask you about that, what you think it was too, because in private we can talk about it, and we know you're speculating, but just your opinion. Your opinion matters to me. It matters to the audience. You know, is this something that humans could have created? This craft you saw?
So if you'd asked me in 2004, I probably would have went, I don't know. You know, you don't know what they're doing, and I don't ask because I really don't care. But I would go, well, keeping something like that, a technology that advanced, hidden for 15 years, you know, I listened to Bob's questions, and I totally agree with what he's saying, but you can keep secrets, but eventually they leak out. And I'll just use the 117. Before, you know, the 117 was around for years before it was acknowledged. And then there was pictures of it in Germany, you know, those little grainy shots. And then the Air Force came out and acknowledged that we had this thing, and they started using it more. So you can hide stuff for a period of time, but eventually the rumors are going to come out that you're going to start to see something like this. And after 15 years, you know, we're still pumping diesel fuel and jet engines and sucking air in and blowing it out the back to make us go. And I'd go, man, if you have this, self-driving cars, Tesla, because you don't have to go like super fast. If you have something that manipulates that, you could just cruise all around. You know, you have this little reactor in your car, and you just, you know, no output. Everyone wants a Green New Deal. Well, that was sarcasm. No one throw rocks at me. I know I'm up here. But for something like this, you know, no one's going to pay. Well, I live in New Hampshire. Let's use $4 a gallon for gas because you live in California. no one would have to get their own gas pumped here because you wouldn't need it. So it would change, it would literally, think about it, it would change the world for mankind.
2007, Harry Reid, working with some folks at the DIA, gets interested in this subject enough to where he initiates a program. He gets some other senators on board. They have a program, some funding, and for a couple of years at least, there was research into this and on a wider version of topics. A friend of yours, Lou Elizondo, had his own slice of a study, ATIP, looking at nuts and bolts flying saucers encounters with military units, and then it sort of went away. We have reported, and we have read in other news reports, that Congress is now interested, that the congressional staffers, closed-door briefings with pilots, with witnesses, and that now elected members of Congress are looking at it without crossing a line or violating confidence. Can you speak about that in general terms, or say whatever you know about what that process is and where it might lead?
Yeah, I will. This is a secret. That's a joke. Yes, that is true. I have been asked. I have went to Washington, and I have talked to people. I will not get into specifics of who I talked to because that is between me and them. There is an interest in this at very high levels. I think you're seeing that with what 2 weeks ago the Navy came out and said they're changing their reporting procedures. I'm not going to post on Facebook that my job is done and I've been successful. That's sarcasm at someone else. But there are people. I know for a fact there were 2 of us that went and talked to people, and we've done it multiple times, different people. So, yes, this is going on. Yes, there are people that think this is very important to look at. They think that it's worth the money. I personally laugh. It was Harry Reid Senator Reid got $22 million over 4 years, right? Or 5 years. 5 years. Just $4.4 million a year. Have you guys seen the defense budget this year? Over $700 billion. That's like me tossing you a penny. That's about what it is in that budget, because I'm not rich, so a penny's a lot. But it's in the rounding error, and people freak out that, oh my God, you spent $4.4 million a year at the Pentagon doing ATIP. And I go, I applaud them. $4.4 million, you probably got a lot, you probably got your money's worth. And the fact that it ran for what, 5 years, it was over supposedly in 2012. I talked to Lou in like 2016, he was still at the Pentagon. You do the math.
So you're
and
saying,
we were talking about
saying
this.
The program hasn't ended?
I would say, I don't know. I won't speculate on what the government does. I'll say this. Having been a lot of time, most of my adult life in the military, we never stop doing anything until someone physically tells us to stop. Never worried about budget, never worried about anything. They tell you to do it, you do it. You find a way to get it done. So Lou is very much like I am. He's got a very interesting background for what he's been able to do. He calls it like it is. I'll speak for him. He'll probably yell at me, but I'm speaking for him because we've had this. He talks about this, why he left his job, because I asked him when he left, and it was, he felt that the political appointees between him and the Secretary Mattis, or as I know him, General, he was actually my senior Marine when I was enlisted. He felt that it was being filtered, so the word wasn't getting up to the Secretary to make the appropriate decisions, and sometimes the best way to speak is with your feet. And he left. And now you'll see him on TV on the 31st at 10 o'clock on History Channel. That's a pitch. Yeah, I think it's important. What do you got to lose? Would you guys spend $22 million over 5 years to maybe find something that you would change the way we do life?
What do you mean by that? What could happen if we could understand this technology that you observed?
Well, let's just start with transportation. That would pretty much change. Because if you can do, now take what I'm talking about and what I saw, because when I saw the Bob Lazar movie that Jeremy did, and a lot of footage that George shot, when I watch it, there's 2 things that come to me, all right? First of all is when he talks about the propulsion system and how these things would move, I'm like, well, that would make total sense. Because you saw in there where he describes, put a bowling ball in the middle of the bed, just sits there, push on the side of the bed, create a void, the bowling ball moves. You look at that and you go, well, that makes a lot of sense. The second thing that I would say that really caught me, and I called Jeremy on this, is because there's a lot of non-believers, and I won't get into my own personal beliefs on everything, but like me, one, he doesn't like talking, and number two, he's not making anything on it. So what's your motivation? Just ask yourself that. What's the motivation? And really, besides the fact, and you can get he can speak for himself on why, and I know he was up here talking about it, but ask that. Those are the two things that hit me the first. I'm like, God, I called Jeremy. I said, man, he sounds just like I am when I talk about this. It was just like it is what it is. Here's what I saw. He doesn't try and embellish. Like, oh yeah, I was in there, I saw the alien bodies, they were actually propping them up in the seats, they were moving them like puppets. No. Or, hey, they were walking around getting me coffee. He doesn't do that. He flat out tells you, no, I didn't see that, I read documents, but I don't know if they're real. But he tells you exactly what he knew. So I'm not telling you exactly, I'll tell you what I'm skeptical on, but and because I talked to the guys on the Princeton, and the CO after that was a good friend of mine. So I kind of got that. And the fact that, because we'll get to the men in suits thing right now. So that's the other one, men in suits showed up. So between us, there's about 6,000 people between the two ships. Of all of them, I was about in the top 20.
In terms of rank.
Yeah, and responsibility. So I would think that if someone's going to show up in suits to discuss this and tell us not to talk, and I'm the guy that chased it, that I'm probably the first person they're going to come and talk to. Call me egotistical, but I'm just saying they're probably going to do that. And it never happened. Ever.
No one signed an NDA that you know of, or was asked to sign an NDA that you know of.
No, it's funny though, people thought we did. Like a good friend of mine who used to work for me, who gave me the airplane comic that he saved for all these years in the New York Times, he's like, dude, I knew this would come back. He goes, you guys signed an NDA? I wrote him back, I'm like, no, we didn't. Like, I'm telling you, when this hit, my friends, I had a buddy of mine, he was on safari in Tanzania. And I start getting text, dude, I'm on safari in Tanzania and you were all over my phone. And I like to quote it up as, so I got this bucket list, trend on Google, check. Twitter, check. And I don't even have a Twitter account, but there's a hashtag David Fravor. Yeah, it was, so all the people that came out are like, dude, I remember you telling me that story. We were sitting in a bar, because that's usually where you find me. Really, I'm not that bad. My wife's probably rolling her eyes right now. But no, it wasn't a shock. But here's the funny story. You guys will like this. So my mother-in-law, when we first started dating, we actually went to high school prom together. So we've been together, we have our 30-year anniversary in June.
His wife, his mother, he's telling a story about
Yeah.
his mother-in-law.
Yeah. No. I married my mother-in-law's daughter.
There we go.
Okay?
Let's be clear.
Does that make sense? So yeah. So I first met her. I used to always joke with my wife, we were dating at the time, because her mom always had like the National Enquirer and all that stuff. Men in Black, the hot sheets. It's the best information. So she would ask me all this. So when I started flying for the Navy, she'd be like, you ever seen UFOs? No. You ever seen UFOs? No. And this went on for years. And then it stopped. She probably shouldn't have stopped asking. So the incident happens in 2004, and she hasn't asked me. And I don't tell anyone. I mean, I barely gave the whole detailed story to my wife and kids. So November 2017, Thanksgiving. I know the New York Times article's coming out. I'm gonna have to divulge. So we're all sitting there, and everyone leaves, like my brother-in-law, the whole, and so it's just my wife and I, and I think my son was with us, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and we're sitting around the little table, and I go, hey, you remember when you used to ask me about UFOs? And she just kind of looks at me, because my father-in-law would always be one of these, Sue, really? You got to ask him all that stuff? So I go, well, there's going to be this article that comes out in the New York Times because I chased a UFO. And she immediately goes, I told you. So, true story. True story. So, I'll just tell you, because this is my third 15 minutes of fame. You don't want 1. 2's bad. 3 is no. And I would never want to be a Hollywood movie star, ever.
He still thinks this is going away. Every month he tells me, aren't people sick of this? I've told my story. Can we talk about something else? And it's not going to go away. Part of what Bob has had to do over 30 years with George is to untwist the fabrications and the lies from a very simple, straightforward story in a lot of ways. Same with Commander Fravor. I want to thank Dave for coming to talk with you for the first and only time, as he said. Thank you so much, Dave, for coming here. And I just want to give a kind of final thoughts to George as well, pass it over to him. My kind of final thought here is, one of the first times I really broke the sound barrier with you about what you think you saw. I would love for today for people to see this around the world and people saying, oh, it could be this, it could be that. No, here's Commander David Fravor sitting right here. He told you his story direct, what he saw as a trained observer and one of the top badass fighter pilots on our planet, what he engaged. So if you deny that information, that's your problem, not ours anymore. He has spoken now. So what I'd just like to say is, when I asked you and we broke that sound barrier of what we're really talking about here, you said to me after a long, uncomfortable pause, Jeremy, have you ever watched Independence Day? Well, I have with my kids. Because I asked you, what do you tell your kids about this? You saw a technology so far advanced, it's inconceivable that it's something created, as far as we understand, by human technology. It appears to be distorting gravity, time, space. This thing is bouncing around like a ping pong ball. You chased it. How does that affect you? How does it affect speaking with your wife? How does it affect with your kids? How has it affected you as a human, how you look at yourself on this earth, man?
My kids are extremely sarcastic. And both very smart. And their mom raised them well. So when they're together, I get brutalized. I walked in the door after doing Tucker Carlson, and I didn't get one foot in the door, and the memes were flying, and the jokes were coming, because I am sober and believable. How does it affect me? I don't know. I'm the same guy that I was growing up in Toledo, Ohio. People that know me are going, yeah, you're the same guy. Kind of a smart aleck. That's a nice way of saying it. I say my kids got it from their mother, but she says, not so fast. No, it's out of all of it, I've met some really cool people. I've gotten a lot of offers that I usually turn down. And the reason I'm here is this guy right here. He sent me video from the parade last year with these two guys. And I go, that looked like it was pretty fun. He goes, you got to go. And I go, well, let me think about it. And then I was like, and then I was off, then I was on, I was off. And then they're like, you can bring your wife. And I'm like, oh, that helps sell it. And then, of course, I was even getting on the airplane to come here. I'm thinking, man, I got so much stuff to do around my house. I'm taking a whole weekend. But it's been really fun. It's been a great opportunity. But I wanted to close with this one thing. So I was asked, what do you think it is? And I've said this. I don't think we developed the technology. I'll just say that. And I asked my astrophysics prof once when I was in college, I asked her, I said, hey, do you believe in extraterrestrial life? And she said, no. Being the prodding kind of pain in the ass that I can be, I said, really? You don't believe? She goes, no. I go, it's an infinite universe. And as far as we know, we can't count them. There's billions and billions of known stars. And I know that because we would fly night vision goggles, which amplify light. And you turn all the lights down and go up at about 30,000 feet in the middle of the Pacific. Then roll your head back. You can see the entire Milky Way. It's spectacular. Just so you know, you can live through me, but it's incredible. You can actually see satellites going over. You can see them moving. So you sit back there and you look at all that and you go, if If we're the only thing, this is it, Earth, it's pretty lonely. I just want you to think about that. It'd be like you being the only person on the planet. It's a lot of space going to waste. So just put that in your, I'm not going to talk little green man or any of that stuff. I'm just saying there's a lot out there that we don't know. We can't understand, we can't explain dark energy. We can't explain dark matter. Physicists will admit that. So just take that. We still have a lot to learn. We are just finishing proving some of Einstein's theories, like proof that we can actually see gravity waves, and the stuff that just came out of the black hole. So there's a lot out there. Just keep that in your hip pocket as you all walk out. When people question, it's, if we're going to be open-minded, let's think that we're not all that. Let's check our hubris, and go, maybe there's some other stuff out there.